5:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on into a Friday. It is July 11th, and I hope you are doing well. Dan here, along with KGB, and Jay Harper is in for Joan Jones. She'll return on Monday. I thought this was interesting. Jessica Tarloff from The Five, right, on Fox News, she said something yesterday. I think this was yesterday. And I thought that it was rather, what's the right word? Inflammatory would be the right word, I think, among other things. But she was, engrossed in a conversation on The Five. And I want to play you what she said. Basically, what she's saying is that ICE detention center staff are sexually assaulting the illegal aliens inside of these ICE detention centers. This was on The Five. Listen close. Need some audio, KGB.
What is going on with this immigration policy is not what people showed up on November 5th for. I know there are some folks out there are pictures of those grannies that had those signs that says mass deportation now.
What about you bring up something as charged as sexual abuse?
Yeah.
Who is causing the sexual abuse? Is it the people running the detention center are raping the detainees?
You've never heard of that happening, or they're
abusing them? Because I want to be clear that that's what you're alluding to.
That's what the report
So people that are running the detainee center are sexually abusing.
I don't have video of what was happening. I just know that they are seeing an increased amount of 911 calls saying that people
Biden ran.
What an idiot. Can I just say, Jessica Tarloff, come on, man, you're on Fox News. You are on The Five. And so if you're going to bring that kind of an accusation, then you better darn right well bring the receipts. And she didn't. And so I had to go and I had to find the report. And so the only thing that I could find, and by the way, I am not saying that over the years this has not happened. That's not what I'm saying at all. Of course it happens. But what she is saying is that I'm going to paraphrase now, is that since January, since Donald Trump took over, there has been a massive increase in sexual assaults in the ICE detention centers, and the people that were assaulting the people inside, the illegal aliens inside, were the ICE detention center staff. That's what Jessica Tarloff is saying. And yeah, that is inflammatory, scandalous allegations. And if this is happening, people really, to be honest, we should know. So I went looking for the report, and I did find a report. This is from Wired.
Regional 911, what is your emergency? You speak Spanish? No, ma'am. I understand English. I need help. Ayuda.
A Wired investigation into 911 calls from 10 of the nation's largest ICE detention centers found that serious medical incidents are rising. Since January, these facilities have made nearly 400 emergency calls.
Right. You know why that is? It's because there's a lot more people in these detention centers, folks. Of course, you are going to have 911 call, whatever it is. Of course, you're going to have calls that are going to 911 or whatever, because there's a lot more people in these detention centers. Do I have to tell you this? Tarloff chose to focus on these allegations of sexual assault because, she's a leftist, right? And so everything that ICE does is evil. That's ultimately the position of the left. Everything ICE does is horrendous, and everything that the Trump administration does is awful, and they're the Gestapo, right? So that's what she chose to focus on. But nowhere in this Wired report, and by the way, you can find it on my social media, at Dan Mandis Show, find me on X. And so Tarloff, she focused on these allegations of sexual assault, accusing staff at these centers of sexually assaulting those being held. Well, listen to this.
Cardiac episodes, seizures, head injuries, suicide attempts, sexual abuse. Experts say the real number of medical crises inside the walls of these centers is likely much higher.
So in other words, this was a report. If this is what Jessica Tarloff is saying, if this is the report, they're talking about a wide array of issues that have been going on inside of these ICE detention facilities. And so she sounded, and I just played you the audio, she sounded utterly confused. It's like, Jessica, you are surrounded by conservatives on the 5. Yeah, you are definitely outnumbered. And you got two of the best. You got Greg Gutfeld and Jesse Waters. So if you're going to make those kinds of allegations, girlfriend, you better bring the receipts. And again, she didn't. Oh, I don't have the video. Well, what do you have, Jessica? Because if you're going to make those kinds of scandalous accusations, then you better have something more concrete than what you did. Because she didn't. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this is because members of ICE, members of law enforcement are getting attacked daily. And it's this kind of rhetoric that is instigating it. Here's one more audio bite from this report, and nowhere does it say that the staff en masse are assaulting people inside.
The system is stretched to its limit, and to cope, ICE is offloading detainees into federal prisons and tent-like camps, while issuing no-bid contracts to private prison giants like Geo Group and Core Civic. Dispatch records show how fast medical crises spiral inside these overcrowded remote facilities.
Well, you know what? That's what happens when you come here illegally. And by the way, I'm still saying, and everybody knows this, that the vast majority of people that are getting busted are the bad hombres. And so when you are the likes of Jessica Tarlov, when you are the likes of any leftist out there that continuously is calling ICE the Gestapo, among many other things. I mean, you've got the Gestapo, you've got, the usual Nazi, Hitler, all that kind of stuff. And then they're not saying anything to condemn the attacks on ICE. Well, then it's not really shocking when we see what we see. Like, for example, did you see what happened yesterday in Ventura, California? You got ICE that show up, and they're showing up at a kind of like a farm out in Ventura. It's, I guess, northwest of Los Angeles. And so ICE shows up, and they're looking for, bad guys. They're looking for people that are working on the farm that are either illegal or maybe even perhaps, some sort of child trafficking ring, because we have seen that happen on these farms as well. And so these ICE officers show up, and then, of course, there's a massive standoff. There's video, of course, of one of these bad guys, shooting at ICE officers. And then, of course, there's more video of these guys that are hurling big rocks at these ICE vans that are trying to leave. And so part of the discussion this week, and I don't want to redo yesterday's monologue, but part of the discussion today and yesterday and this week has been how you have all of these folks on the left that are using this really hyperbolic language to inspire these kinds of attacks. Did you hear what a state senator said in Nebraska? We're going to talk about that straight ahead. It is 5:15 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Jay Harper has the traffic. Jay, what's up?
Yeah, Dan, we do still have that crash. It was reported, about 30 or 40 minutes ago near the airport, Harding Place at Donaldson Pike. And still, folks in Brentwood having to deal with some road work there that's left only one lane open on Concord Road westbound past Green Hills Boulevard. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Jay. As far as your weather today, high of 92, scattered thunderstorms. On Saturday, a high of 94, scattered showers as well. And on Sunday, a high of 94, thunderstorms in the evening. And we'll keep you posted on all the weather coming up here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So a state senator in Nebraska just talking about the nasty vitriol of people coming, folks on the left, directed at ICE. Hours after MS-13 kingpin on El Salvador's most wanted list was arrested in Nebraska. We told you about that yesterday, right? Yesterday in Omaha, Nebraska, El Salvador's most wanted was captured. He had taken part in 5 murders in El Salvador. He was at the top of their most wanted list. He's just hanging out in Omaha, Nebraska. He and another guy from MS-13 hanging out. So that's who ICE got, right? Nebraska State Senator Megan Hunt calls ICE Gestapo thugs and wants them to be stopped at every opportunity. This is what she said. This is on social media. State Senator Megan Hunt. F ICE and everyone who supports them. These thugs are America's Gestapo, our modern national shame, and must be stopped at every opportunity. Regardless of the fact that they just bagged a guy in Omaha, Nebraska, who was on El Salvador's most wanted list after taking part in 5 murders. Do you see how crazy this is? Do you see how absolutely insane this is on the left? But this is what they're doing. And this insanity, no doubt, is going to continue. One more, just to show you, and then I'm going to move on. But one more. The attacks on ICE, of course, what happened in Texas, where you had 10 or 11, it looks like it was more than just 10 of these folks are saying they're Antifa. Other people are saying trans-Tifa because 2 of them were trans. So you know the story. They try to lure the ICE agents out with fireworks, and then they come out, and then they attack them, right? And so total ambush. Do you know now that there is a give, send, go for these guys that attacked, ambushed these ICE officers? One local law enforcement officer was even shot in the neck. And now, yes, they are supporting them with a give, send, go. So you go to the page, right? They're asking for $20,000. Migration is beautiful. You go onto the page. Migration is beautiful. Okay. Well, be that as it may, you had 10 people who, by the way, were not migrants. These are, basically white dudes. And they had all their weaponry, and they shot at ICE officers. Has nothing to do with migration. This has to do with attempted murder. So migration is beautiful. Support DFW anti-ICE protesters. And they're asking for $20,000. They say, on the night of July 4th, local police arrested 10 people outside of the ICE Prairieland detention facility in Alvarado, Texas. They say, we don't know all of the circumstances leading to the arrests. We do know that popular outrage and resistance to deportations is growing across the country. Well, here's what we know about the circumstances leading to the arrests. They tried to lure ICE agents outside of the facility, and they did, and then they opened fire. I mean, I don't know what else you need to know. So they say organizers, activists, and affected communities have spent the year organizing rallies and protests outside of detention centers, just like the one in Alvarado. They say the 10 people arrested on July 4th currently face serious charges aimed not only at ruining their lives, but signaling an authoritarian criminalization of dissent and protest against ICE. Local authorities have set bail at $10 million per person. I mean, you want to talk about, what's the right word? Out of context. So the reason their lives are going to be ruined is because of what I just said, because they lured ICE agents outside of the building and then opened fire on them. That is why they are their lives are going to be ruined. And this isn't signaling an authoritarian criminalization of dissent and protest against ICE. No, not at all, actually. But when you try to murder law enforcement officers, whether it is local law enforcement or, ICE and federal, then, yeah, you know what? Your life is going to be ruined. And by the way, they're lucky they weren't shot dead. But just to tell you how insane this is, they're asking for $20,000. Do you know how much they've raised? Is $14,168. And so leftists, they're lining up. They are. Man, they're lining up to give money to these people who tried to kill ICE agents. It is sad. It is unbelievable. But it is also something that is very consistent with what the left has been doing really since January when Donald Trump was sworn into office and the mass deportations continued. It is 5:22 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, so KGB, have we figured out, this is what's been going on behind the scenes?
Aha.
Your humble host overslept a little bit this morning again.
Yeah, well.
So we have completely shanked on really the one thing that we try to do well every single morning is the Daily Dan poll. And I couldn't think of one. And Jeff, apparently, I tasked young KGB, the producer of Nashville's Morning News, a lofty position, by the way, that has a lot of responsibility.
Yes, I understand.
With coming up with some sort of a Daily Dan poll. And have we come up with anything in the 25 minutes since we started down this road?
I'm trying to think of an ICE question, but it's hard to I'm trying not to have a 99-1 kind of question.
All right, Jay, what do you got?
Oh,
you got any kind of a Daily Dan poll question? See, the problem, what happens is I end up, throwing a bunch out at Jeff, and he's like, we did that last week. We did that yesterday. We did that 3 days ago. So here's the deal. If you can think of something, Jay, you'll be the hero of the day. And I'm going to open up the super text line right now, 615-737-9986. If we want to crowdsource maybe a suggestion for the Daily Dan poll, then that would be super duper terrific. By the way, watch us on YouTube, Facebook, 99.7 WTN X, and now Jay on Rumble.
Rumble. Let's get ready to rumble.
It's very exciting, actually, that we are now on Rumble. So I think you go to 99.7 WTN on Rumble, and you can watch us there. At last check, Jay, you know how many people we had watching us on Rumble yesterday? I think it was 2.
The highest was 12.
The highest was during this show?
Well,
highest was 12?
It's a new platform. It takes a little while to
it's new to us.
Going. It's also hard to find.
New
apparently.
to us.
People had difficulty finding our channel.
All right, so real quick, how many people do we have watching us on Rumble right now? I'm going to Jay, let's see who can guess it. I'm going to say, Jay, we've got 2. How many do you say we have on Rumble?
At this time of the morning,
sure,
I will say 5.
Okay. Jay's got a lot more faith than I do.
Well done, Jay. 5 is the number.
Wow. Jay, did you somehow cheat?
No,
are you on Rumble?
I don't even know how to get to Rumble.
RUMBLE.
Right.
All right. Hey, Jay, what's coming up in the news?
Well, the president visiting Texas today, and perhaps, Dan, you could come up with some sort of question regarding that for the Daily Dan poll. But anyway, also ICE raids continuing in California, but as you've been talking about, Dan, not without confrontations. We'll have those stories coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
5:36, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, Jay Harper.
Yes, sir?
Can you tell me, and there's a reason I'm asking, because it's one of the headlines this morning, Trump announces 35% tariffs on Canadian goods and threatens blanket increases on the rest of the world. I don't know if you saw that, but...
Right. He's ticked over what he says is Canada's lack of enforcement on, letting fentanyl get through the northern border.
Yeah, and he posted a letter last night to Truth Social that he had sent to Canada. So I'm wondering, and I'm gonna get into some of the details, but so what do the futures look like this morning?
Well, they're all down, and the one that's really down is the Dow. It's down 310. NASDAQ down 133. All three of them are down, though.
Well, we've seen this. We've all been here, done this.
Yeah, but it's been a roller coaster with the stocks, up, down, but that's just kind of typical.
Well, yeah, it is typical, and I'm assuming that they're reacting to what Donald Trump did last night. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see where the whole thing goes. But this is the story. Thank you, Jay.
Yes, sir.
Donald Trump has thrown, they say, a grenade on the tariff negotiations between the United States and Canada with a blistering letter to Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. The two nations, of course, have been trying to settle the tariff war that broke out when Donald Trump returned to office and announced plans to reorganize world trade. Canadian officials, of course, had hoped that a deal was close, but Trump's latest letter, which he shared to Truth Social on Thursday night, has set negotiations back to square one. The letter revealed he would raise tariffs on Canadian products to 35% from August 1st, a 10% increase on the current levy. Trump said the tariff hike was in part due to the fentanyl crisis and Canada's failure to stop the drugs from pouring into our country. He says, I must mention that the flow of fentanyl is hardly the only challenge we have with Canada, which has many tariff and non-tariff policies and trade barriers. Donald Trump wrote in the letter saying the fact is the United States has agreed to continue working with Canada despite Canada having financially retaliated against the United States, demonstrates the deep commitment to our trading partnership. This sounds a little bit like tough love. They say the letter did include a warning shot to Carney, vowing to continue upping the U.S. Tariffs if Canada was to impose retaliatory tariffs. In other words, obviously, so August 1st, we're going to raise our tariffs to 35% from 10% from that's raising it up 10%. Right now it's at 25%. And so the bottom line is Trump is saying if you try to raise tariffs on us in retaliation, that's fine. You go right on ahead because Canada needs us a heck of a lot more than we need them. So we'll go ahead and we'll raise our tariffs in response. If you want to go, Donald Trump is saying to Mark Carney, if you want to go, let's go. Which is really too bad because, I mean, they've been getting along pretty well. And so now, here we are. Donald Trump saying he would consider an adjustment to this letter if Canada works with me to stop the flow of fentanyl. Those tariffs, he says, may be modified upward or downward, depending on our relationship with your country. The latest round of tariffs are in addition to previously imposed tariffs on various sectors, talking about steel, copper, and aluminum, which came into effect for most countries on June 4th at a whopping 50%. So that is the latest on the tariffs. And that is, of course, big news this morning. The White House also accusing Jerome Powell of mismanaging the Federal Reserve. That is also in the news today. It is 5:41 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right. Oh, we do, by the way, we did get a poll question from a guy named Nick. So thank you, Nick, very much. How did we end up, KGB, what is the exact wording of the poll, the Daily Dan poll that you can find on YouTube? How did we word that with Nick's suggestion?
Yeah, is the announcement of the James Comey investigation a planned distraction from the Epstein case? Yes or no? And no, 57% to 43% yes.
Okay, very good. By the way, we do, thank you, Nick. We also, can we do a poll on Rumble too? Do they allow that?
No, I looked. We can't.
We can't do that?
I'll keep looking. Maybe it's hidden somewhere because it's still fresh, but I haven't seen it. Okay. But I'll keep looking.
All right, remember, we are on Facebook, X, YouTube, 99.7 WTN, and now Rumble, where we are up to 12 watchers on Rumble.
22, actually.
22. Wow, it's going up exponentially. Thank you. You can also, by the way, find us on all the major streaming apps as well. We do have, by the way, an update on the Epstein files. Apparently, Donald Trump, some are saying, has now ordered them to be released. I'm so confused. I thought the Epstein files didn't exist. Apparently, they do. Because some are saying now that Donald Trump has ordered them released, so we'll have to see ultimately what happens. Alan Dershowitz. Oh, by the way, another thing, FOIA requests have been made by Judicial Watch, and apparently the latest on that is that the FBI is supposedly going through their records to I guess, cooperate with the FOIA requests that have been made by Judicial Watch. Alan Dershowitz was on with Sean Spicer last night, and Dershowitz says, yeah, I know exactly who is on that list.
So let me tell you, I know for a fact documents are being suppressed, and they're being suppressed to protect individuals. I know the names of the individuals. I know why they're being suppressed. I know who's suppressing them, but I'm bound by confidentiality from a judge and cases, and I can't disclose what I know.
Well, he should know because he was involved in this. Remember, Alan Dershowitz was accused of some really creepy things way back when. More on that in a second, but more from Alan Dershowitz.
But I hand to God, I know the names of people whose files are being suppressed in order to protect them, and that's wrong.
Just out of curiosity, without names, are these politicians, business leaders, both?
They're everything. And let me tell you, a lot of them are, at least one of them is somebody who was accused. Others are accusers. And the judges have said, if somebody calls themselves a victim, we're not going to give any information about them. But they may not be victims. They may be perpetrators. So we don't have information about false accusers. And we know there have been many false accusers who have accused innocent people for money. And those records are being deliberately, willfully suppressed. Mm-hmm. And they shouldn't be suppressed. If the accusation is allowed out, so should the material that diminishes the credibility of the accuser. We want total transparency on this.
See, but that's a big question, and one that I struggle with. Because as Alan Dershowitz says, there have been many unproven allegations. And so is that what we want to see released? Do we want unproven allegations released? If, I don't know, whatever. John Doe from Philadelphia. Let's say that somebody somewhere 15 years ago made an allegation against him, but, with the Epstein files, and then all of a sudden, it'd be longer than that, right? Whatever. So let's just say that there were allegations made against him. Well, then do you release his name, even though there's no supporting evidence that he ever did anything wrong? I mean, that's part of the conversation, because here's the deal. You and I both know that if John Doe from Philadelphia, if he is at all connected in any way to Epstein, and there was a accusation made against him with no supporting allegations or no supporting evidence, well, then his life is going to be destroyed because there was an accusation made against him. And that there are people, many people in this country who, even if there's an allegation without any evidence, doesn't matter. Your life is ruined and your career is ruined. Your reputation is ruined as well. So listen, I get it. It's all about total transparency. Now, Alan Dershowitz, he was accused, but ultimately he was able to clear his name. He talked about the false accusations and the false accusers. Some guy was wrongly accused. His name is put out there, and he's going to be harassed until, his dying day. And if there's no cooperating evidence, well, then why would we do that to a person? But at the same time, you do want full and open transparency. But you put the names out there without corroborating evidence, well, then it's just going to become like a witch hunt. Now, Alan Dershowitz was on the list. And he says, you know what? There is an actual story behind all of this.
Every single document, no redaction. That's what I've said from day one. I waive any of my rights of privacy. Anything there is about me, I'm happy because it will be exculpatory, because I know I haven't touched a woman other than my wife from the day I met Jeffrey Epstein. I don't even hug people, but I was falsely accused and I was able to prove it. And I was able to prove it through documents. And I want other people to be able to disprove false accusations through documents. But these documents are being suppressed and withheld.
So Dershowitz, of course, famed attorney, one of the best ever. And he was Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer. Got him his 2008 non-prosecution agreement. And he was also accused by Virginia Giuffre in 2014 of being trafficked to Dershowitz, made his life a living hell. And then years later, and this is what I'm trying to caution folks on, years later, she said, well, I may have made a mistake. Okay, well, a man's life was made a living hell because you made a mistake. And in case you're thinking that he bought her off, from what I understand, from what I've read, there was actually no financial transaction. Dershowitz was able to prove his innocence. Now, clearly, she is a victim. Virginia Giuffre, she is a victim. But, it does bring home the point that innocent people's lives can be ruined by this. People still believe that Dershowitz is guilty, even though she took the accusations back and it's off the table, basically cleared his name. People still look at him as, a creeper. People still look at him as somebody who was involved with Epstein Island and, did all of these untoward things. Because remember, the accusations are made, but then when the pullback happens, in this case with Virginia Giuffre, well, the pullback isn't nearly as loud as the accusation. And we know that that is always the case. Now, remember, Steve Bannon, who is a close friend of Donald Trump, of course, big supporter, and Elon Musk said that Bannon's name is on that list. Now, Elon Musk also said that Donald Trump's name is on the list, and I think that this is the same thing that I say with all these folks. If you're going to start running around making accusations, you better bring the damn receipts. And so Bannon is out there saying now, okay, well, now that I've been accused, then you've got to release it all to prove that I'm not on it.
They have to go and demand, they have to go to the court and demand and unseal the sealed evidence in Epstein. It starts there. Then bundle everything together you got, sealed and unsealed, and release it all. Or, which I've called for yesterday, he should appoint a special prosecutor, special counsel now for the 2020 election and everything after that, and include Russiagate and all this. You have to do that. That should be done immediately, and that should report to the President of the United States. And also, they should do one if DOJ can't move off the dime and the FBI can't move off the dime, there should be a special counsel to go through everything and release it all.
9159 says this and brings up a good point. By the way, Super Text line is open 615-737-9986. Hey, Dan, I think you're misunderstanding what Dershowitz is saying. What he's saying is that there are people claiming to be victims, and that claim is out there in the public, but there are things and I'm paraphrasing what this guy's writing, but there might be information in the files that would exonerate them, that would prove their innocence. So, yeah, I can go either way on this, and he's right. There have been accusations made against some folks, and if there is information in the files that would exonerate some folks, then, yeah, that should be released. But two things can be true at once. There might also be people that are in these lists and in the file and whatever, that their name is there. And there might be some accusations there, but there might not be any exculpatory evidence in there, but there also might not be any evidence that they did anything. If John Doe out there in Philadelphia, his name is on the list and it says that he had an appointment with Virginia Giuffre, and literally that's all there is. Well, I mean, to me, is that enough to ruin somebody's life? Is that enough to make someone, a pariah? I don't know. But I also want full transparency. So I'm admitting to you that, some of these things here, they're going to lack the proper context to give us the full scope of what was going on. And so then we've got a witch hunt going on. So I'm conflicted on this. I will admit I'm very conflicted on this. 7422 says Dershowitz doesn't hug people. 4702 is called guilt by association. Yeah, that I get without the Dershowitz. I totally get that as well. By the way, I loved what Steve Bannon said. I love the idea of a special counsel. I think that most people would welcome that, depending, by the way, on who the special counsel is and ensuring that person is not involved really with the FBI, the CIA, the government at all. I mean, you got to try to figure out somebody who will have some credibility. That's what you need to do. you need to have somebody with some credibility. I think Alan Dershowitz would be credible, don't you? Would Alan Dershowitz be credible as a special counsel? Now, real quick, what time is it? Real quick, Judicial Watch filed a FOIA request, and they are now reporting that the FBI is now looking for documents. Now, this comes just days after the FBI reported that there are no more documents and that Jeffrey Epstein did kill himself. And there's no list. There's nothing left. That's what the FBI said. Now, we're hearing that Donald Trump, I have not seen anything official, by the way, but we're hearing that Trump is now ordering all of the documents released and that the FBI is culling through its records to see how they can abide by the FOIA request by Judicial Watch. This is from the Washington Examiner. In the latest Trump administration confusion over the high-profile case, the Justice Department said in a court filing that the FBI search continues and that it does not yet know if more documents will be found or released. This is Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch.
I think they decided for political purposes they didn't want to include the individuals who were on these lists and put them in the public domain. And they were concerned that some of them may not have done something warranting the disclosure. I mean, that's the most charitable interpretation. But there is a list. There's no doubt. I mean, they talk about in the memo they wrote, well, there's no incriminating client list. Well, what does that mean? I want the non-incriminating client list. And of course, a client list is a term of art, right? Where are his associates? Where is the list of contacts? And we asked under our FOIA lawsuit, Pam Bondi, give us the documents that you say you were looking at. Give us documents about the release of these documents. You said the FBI was obstructing the release. They came back to us and said, we have nothing.
So, yeah, Tom Fitton, along with many, many others, many other Americans, really, really confused by this whole thing. By the way, Fox News reported yesterday, I'll probably talk about this a little bit later on in the radio broadcast. But Fox News is saying that the number of victims, the number of Jeffrey Epstein victims, could rank over 1,000. So that's new information. 5:55, and Jay Harper is in for Joan Jones. And Jay, what's coming up in the news at 6?
Sure, Dan. Marco Rubio. He's in Malaysia meeting with Southeast Asian nations. A major Middle Tennessee employer ceases operations earlier than expected, and we'll have this morning's money news. That's coming up at the top of the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.